You finally draw the line, and suddenly they panic. Why does setting a reasonable limit trigger immediate rage, guilt, and emotional chaos? This is the dark psychological paradox of personal limits, a simple act that transforms a relationship of exploitation into a battle for survival.
So, what is it about a simple no that can just detonate a relationship? You know, that question is really at the heart of what we're talking about today. We're going to deconstruct this confusing and, let's be honest, often painful reaction. We're going to go from the paradox itself to the psychology behind it, and finally land on a really clear strategy for defense. Okay, let's dive right in.
All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll define the battlefield itself, the boundary. Then, we'll look at the predictable cycle of rage that kicks off when you try to enforce that boundary. We're going to go deep into the psychology of why this happens. We're talking supply and survival. From there, we'll build a practical defense with what I call narcissist-proof boundaries. And finally, we'll look at how their reaction is actually your confirmation.
So let's start by really understanding the core conflict here. Before we can break down why setting a limit causes so much chaos, we've got to be on the same page about what a boundary even is, and why in some relationships it's not seen as respect but as a full-blown declaration of war. Now, for most of us, this is pretty straightforward, right? A boundary is about mutual respect, emotional safety. It's that invisible line that says, hey, this is me and that is you. My needs matter and your needs matter. It's the foundation of any healthy relationship. You know, something as simple as, I need some quiet time after work to recharge. That's a request for space, not a rejection of the person. But in a toxic dynamic, this whole concept gets flipped on its head. To them, the very idea that you are a separate person with separate needs, that's the problem.
And this is where the perspective shift is just massive. For someone with really high narcissistic traits, you aren't seen as a separate person with your own thoughts and feelings. No, you're seen as an extension of them. You exist to serve a function, which is to provide admiration, validation, resources, a constant stream of what psychologists call narcissistic supply. Now, this supply can be anything: praise, attention, even the drama from a good fight. Because of this, they feel they are entitled to unlimited access to you, your time, your energy, the whole shebang.
And that's why boundary violations are almost never a mistake. They're a strategy, plain and simple. Every time a small limit gets pushed, you know, they show up 10 minutes late, make a backhanded compliment, a joke that's kind of at your expense, what they're really doing is testing you. They're gathering data. Will you fold? Will you actually apologize for having a need? And over time, this constant prodding, it just erodes your self-esteem. It literally conditions you to believe that your needs are unreasonable, that you're being selfish. And this isn't random. It is a very deliberate tactic to keep their emotional supply line wide open.
So, this brings us to what happens when you decide to interrupt that pattern. When you finally stop letting those little things slide and you set a firm boundary, you trigger this huge reaction. And what feels like terrifying, unpredictable chaos is actually, well, it's a predictable, almost mechanical cycle. It's the manipulator's panic response in action.
This three-stage process is basically the engine that drives the whole toxic dynamic. It all kicks off with stage one, the challenge. You set a limit. I can't talk on the phone after 9 p.m., or please don't comment on my finances. Now, to the manipulator, this isn't a reasonable request at all. It's seen as a deep, personal insult, a major wound to their ego, what psychologists call a narcissistic injury. And that immediately triggers stage two, the panic/rage reaction. Their supply line has been cut and they panic, and that panic looks like an attack. The whole goal of that attack is to push you, to bully you into stage three, the retraction. That's where you just give up and withdraw the boundary to make the chaos stop. And that completes the loop. It teaches them that rage works.
And during that panic and rage reaction, they pull out a very specific set of tools. Guilt tripping is a classic, right? It's designed to weaponize your own empathy against you. Gaslighting is another favorite. This is where they try to make you question your own sanity. They'll say stuff like, you're overreacting, that never happened, or you're just way too sensitive, all to make you doubt what you know is true. And if those don't work, well, they might escalate to full-blown narcissistic rage. That can be explosive yelling, or it can be a cold, punishing silence. But either way, it's designed to flood your system with fear and anxiety, making it seem like giving in is the only way to feel safe again.
So, we've seen the what and we've seen the how. But now we've got to ask the biggest question of all. Why? Why does a simple limit trigger a reaction that seems so huge, so completely out of proportion? Well, the answer is in the very different psychological worlds that the manipulator and their target are living in. This is where you can really see how different the two mindsets are. Look at the manipulator's column. Their panic is driven by an incredibly brittle self-esteem.
They need that external validation, that narcissistic supply just to feel okay. So a boundary isn't just a boundary, it feels like a threat to their survival, to their status. Now look at the other side. The victim's struggle isn't about supply, it's about conditioned guilt and shame. They're afraid of the manipulator's rage, of the conflict they know is coming. They've been trained for so long to feel responsible for the other person's emotions. So you see, while one person is fighting for their ego, the other is just trying to avoid a fight.
And this reframe right here changes everything. When you set a boundary, you are not being selfish, you are not being cruel, you are making a choice. You are choosing your own psychological and emotional survival over their need for an endless supply. It is a radical act of self-preservation. You are basically declaring that your well-being is not up for debate anymore, and that is precisely what triggers their panic. It's a declaration of your independence. Okay, so understanding the psychology is one thing, and it's crucial, but knowledge without action, well, it's not enough. So let's shift gears now from diagnosis to treatment. This is where we go from the why to the how. How do you actually create boundaries that can stand up to that inevitable panic and rage? It takes a clear, actionable protocol.
These right here are the 3 pillars of an effective defense. They are designed to shut down the very loopholes that manipulators are experts at exploiting. So, number 1, refuse to JADE. Number 2, use policy statements. And number 3, and honestly, this is the big one, ensure consistent follow-through. Let's break each of these down.
Okay, so JADE. It's a trap. The second you start to justify, argue, defend, or explain your boundary, you've already lost. Why? Because it sends a signal to the manipulator that your boundary is up for negotiation. It opens a debate. And in a debate, they can use all their tactics, guilt, gaslighting, circular arguments, to just wear you down until you give in. For them, any engagement is a win because it keeps the focus on them. A boundary is a statement, not a discussion. A simple, "I'm not going to discuss this further," is so much more powerful than a 20-minute explanation.
This is where you take the personal out of it. A policy statement removes you and your feelings from the equation. You're not saying, "You're hurting my feelings." You're saying, "This is my policy." It's totally non-negotiable. It's not about them, it's about the standard you set for your own life. You know, another one could be, "My policy is I don't lend money." Phrasing it this way makes it so much harder for them to argue. I mean, how can they debate your personal policy? It just is.
And that brings us to the most critical step of all. Because really, a boundary without a consequence is just a suggestion. If your policy is that you hang up when a conversation gets disrespectful, you have to hang up the very first time it happens. Not with anger, not with a big lecture, but calmly and immediately. Consistency is what teaches. It's what retrains the manipulator to understand that their panic tactics, the rage, the guilt, they don't work anymore. The reward they used to get for that behavior is just gone.
So, we've really come full circle, haven't we? We started with this confusing paradox of their panic, and we've walked through the tactics, the psychology, and the defense. And now we get to the conclusion, where we can finally reframe that panic not as a sign that you failed, but as the clearest signal of your success.
This is the question, isn't it? This is the one that keeps so many people trapped. When someone you care about reacts with that much pain or anger to your boundary, it's so natural to second-guess yourself. Did I do the right thing? Am I being cruel? Was I being unreasonable? That moment of self-doubt, that is exactly what their panic reaction is designed to create.
And the answer to that question is an absolute, unwavering no. Their panic is not proof that you are wrong. It is definitive, undeniable proof that your boundary was necessary and that it is working. It proves that they were relying on your unlimited access for their own emotional stability. Their panic is the sound of that supply line being cut. It is the sound of you taking back your autonomy. Look, when it comes right down to it, a boundary is a direct threat to a toxic person's narcissistic supply. Their whole sense of self is often built on your compliance, so when you take that away, their internal system panics. That panic is what triggers the cycle we've been talking about. The rage, the guilt-tripping, the gaslighting, all of it is a desperate, calculated performance designed to pressure you into retracting that limit and turning the supply back on. But awareness breaks the loop. When you can see their panic not as a sign you did something wrong, but as confirmation that your boundary is effective, the whole power dynamic shifts. By refusing to JADE and by enforcing your limits with calm, consistent follow-through, you're making a choice. You are choosing your own autonomy over the obligation to manage their misery. And that is the moment you stop just surviving their chaos and you start living your own life.